My name is Marney Schorr. I am the director of the Arts and Recovery for Youth program here in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. I am a teaching artist and an art therapist. And I founded the program in the fall of 2016 through a collaboration in the community. Berkshire County has a very high rate of youth suicide, and the community wanted to do something about it. So we met with clinicians, educators, the Coalition for Suicide Prevention, and the Department of Mental Health to come up with something that could really help young people who are battling suicidal thoughts. My experience is in art making and in art therapy, and I've had some training in suicide prevention as well as studying what's working out there to help suicide prevention and help our youth.
My name is Hunter. I use he, him pronouns. I'm trans, and before Ari, I'm shy to begin with, but I was even more shy. I had dealt with a sexual assault, divorced parents, which is very tricky, and so I just was overwhelmed with life. I didn't know how to handle my emotions well, and so I wanted the pain to stop. And so I thought about ending my life, but I just wanted the pain to stop. I didn't want to actually die. I wanted just the pain of everything that had happened to just go away. And so luckily I had a good support system to help me through that time before getting to go to Ari. And it just, once I came to Ari, even though I came in as an intern, I became a participant too at the same time, because I was doing the same artwork, I was learning the same skills, I was doing the check-ins, and those check-ins really help because it gives a number to what I'm feeling, and no one other than the facilitator sees it. And so it gives me a chance to check in with myself, but then also give the numbers to someone else to so that they understand how I feel.
I'm Jack Kelly. I'm 16. I currently am living in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I discovered Ari through a friend of mine that was looking for support, somebody that they could lean on because they were referred to the Ari program, and it was something that they were having a lot of anxiety about. And they reached out to me, and what they did was they said, you don't need to participate, you don't really need to talk, you don't need to be involved in what's going on. I don't want to alienate you, but it would be really great if you could be there for me. And so what I did was I went with them for a couple of weeks, a handful of weeks, and I discovered through the program I was very silent early on. It was something where I was not comfortable, I didn't know what was going on, what really the point of it was. And what I discovered was, through being in the program, was that it was really a place where if people could lean on each other, that would be the place to go. It was something where they needed support, they wanted to give support, they needed an environment where they could really be themselves and be open and honest about what they were dealing with in terms of mental illness. And I was dealing with a lot of symptoms that I didn't understand. I was dealing with symptoms of anxiety and depression, and I kept it under wraps. I didn't talk about it to anybody. I kept it all completely to myself for a little over 2 years, and that was with me for a transitionary period of going through the end of middle school, going into high school. And it was something that was really difficult because it's a point in your life that's already set up to be really difficult and confusing, where you need a lot of support. And I felt really isolated from the people around me because I didn't know how to talk about what was going on. And so I realized, while I'm here, if I'm going to be staying here, if I wanted to stay here, why not use it as an opportunity in order to actually realize that, in order to talk about what I was dealing with, what I needed from the people around me and from my community, how I was going to deal with what was going on. And I was fully accepted. I was fully allowed to express myself and be myself in a way that I had never really felt before.
I guess before I came to art therapy, I was a very kind of suicidal and broken person. I was having panic attacks. Not out in the open, more so and everything, but more closed off and by myself, and I just wouldn't talk to people. I would say I isolated a lot, and my suicidal tendencies were extremely high. The first time I came to Erie, I walked in the door and everything. Me and my mom in walk tears, probably winter, and we walked in and we met Marney. And we went over all like the protocols and everything, and immediately when I walked in, I see this lady sitting down. She has this pink bandana on and everything, and there's a whole bunch of painted tables everywhere, and her art's all up around the room and everything. Like, I've never been in an art gallery before, and so we walk in and we go over all of stuff we need to and everything about how the group's gonna be run and about how this is for how I'm feeling and everything with being suicidal, and like immediately it was like immediate relief, and it was like, okay, I can breathe now. Like, this is where I know I'm able to do art, and this is where I know, like, I've just met this person, but I can kind of like know that she's been through some of the stuff that I've been through and everything, and that in here, like, I can take a deep breath and kind of just relax a little bit.
Probably the hardest skill in arts and recovery for youth to grasp is dialectical thinking. You often hear of it called wise mind, and it's really this idea that we get stuck in black and white thinking in extremes. And what we teach in the Erie program is that two very different things can be true at the same time. So we don't have to feel trapped by our thinking. And what we do is we try to access our intuition to help us solve problems, and we can do that through art. So probably one of my favorite things that we make in the Arts and Recovery for Youth program are wise mind symbols. We can do this with clay, we can do this with paintings. Lately we've been making miniature 3D worlds, and it's really about tapping into something that you know is authentic and true for yourself, your best self, that sort of carries that higher wisdom that we all carry deep inside, and helping young people to become empowered through finding their wise mind is just one of many skills in the program, some of which we have used from dialectical behavior therapy, which is designed to help people manage their emotions, to return to the present and get grounded, which is especially useful for trauma, staying in the present moment and learning how to ground yourself so that you can get through the day. Marshall Linehan, the founder of dialectical behavior therapy, also teaches ideas like radical acceptance, accepting yourself exactly as you are, and at the same time as accepting yourself and accepting your situation, also working to change it for the better.
We learned a fair amount of DBT stuff, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, and we learned one thing called I think it's wellness, I think, and everything, where we learned and everything what's kind of good for us, not what we think is good for us, well, what we think is good for us, but what we know is going to help us and everything, and help us in the future, I would say. We learned one thing where you have to put your heart and your mind kind of on the same level, and their thinking has to be like intertwined, basically. And so there was probably like one day when I was walking down the street and I just got some very rude comments, and my mind told me to be calm and everything and walk away. And that this was just this individual who was probably having a bad day. My heart told me that I should probably stand up for myself, and that I should like say something back, because that's a person I am and everything. Like, just don't let someone else disrespect you and everything. And I had art therapy like not even 5 minutes before this incident had happened. And that day we learned that you can have your heart and your mind and everything on the same level, and have them communicating at the same pace and everything, with thoughts that are very secure and together, and that you don't have to choose between what you want and what you think is correct to do.
Through Ari, we learn a lot of different skills. Those skills can be peer support, grounding, and so my favorite skill that I've learned from Ari is peer support, because you're with the same people throughout the group, and they validate you, they give you support in many different ways. They can call you out on your they can give you advice from a different perspective, because sometimes your perspective is very, very clouded, and so you're not thinking logically about it, and someone else can be like, hey, why don't you look at it from a different point of view? And you're like, oh, that makes very much sense. And with Ari, we make artwork along with it, and so we'll do a range of things from like collage to painting to watercolor to like sculptures and clay.
A lot of times, the art that we made was representative of how we thought it best to encourage ourselves and how to encourage other people. And so when we're talking a lot about emotion, it's a lot of like previous ideas incorporated with new ideas about how our skills affect this. So like if we're trying to figure out how to balance stimuli, and we think that being in this scenario is like the best place to be all the time, but knowing that that's not a realistic possibility, finding a sense of like realism and self-discovery through the art that you make, of like, I'm not always going to be like this. I can work towards other goals and other means, and using our art to express that.
So this is my action, reaction action painting. And so mine is about sadness and like not doing anything, and then happiness and being active. And this one was a very new thing for me to do, because I use different brushes and different scrape things, and it gave me time to sit in one spot of the action and think about it, and then figure out a way to do the opposite of it.
So basically what I do with this painting is I put a whole bunch of different colors in a cup, any kind of cup really, and I kind of put my emotions in that cup too, and I mix it all around, and I add any color that I want, and I dump it onto canvas. There's no real rhyme or reason as to the flow of it. I'm not a person who thinks too much into details unless I want. But when I do my dirty pours, what I'm trying to do is to get out some sort of energy. Like this dirty pour, this was like, I was feeling kind of numb with this one. It's like a beautiful, it has this beautiful deadliness, I would say, to it. It kind of makes me feel, amazing to be able to create something like this, and to be able to know that, like, when I look at this, that emotion is no longer in my body, it's in the art and the work that I'm putting out. And with this one, I used white and a little bit of green as a base color, because that's kind of where I find, like, my reset button. And then I put in black, because I say this a lot, within black you can find things. And I guess I was trying to find where my numbness had gone when I put the black onto this. And then I put the purple onto it, because purple is just a very, for me, is a very straightforward color, I guess. I mean, you can change purple and you can get purple from so many other things, but in my own personal thoughts and everything, purple for me is just a very blank, clean color and everything, as to where other people would think white and black. But I chose to do these colors and everything because each of these colors means something to me, and because I know that whatever I put out on the canvas or on the paper or on the cardboard and everything, it might not look the prettiest, but it's going to hold these emotions that I have poured into this cup, and I've mixed around and everything, and I've brewed on and dumped onto this canvas and everything, and left alone or streaked it and played with this paint and this emotion-filled thing, and then it can dry and it can stay there on that canvas and not in me anymore, and it can crackle and it can evolve into so many different other things that aren't in me anymore, and it's beautiful to see that process of it continuing forward without me.
There are many myths about suicide in our culture. One of them is that it's selfish, but that is very far from the truth. Most people who feel suicidal actually feel like a burden on their families and others. Another myth about suicide is that only people with severe mental illness have felt suicidal, when we know that suicidal thoughts are can be a trauma response, they can be a fear response, basically our primal brain going into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And I think that that is an important model for us to look at about what's happening in the brain when people have suicidal thoughts, because it's quite a common occurrence, and there's a universal human condition in wanting psychological pain to end. And I think it's important that we are able to open a dialogue about that.
So stigma, like, for suicide and being trans, is very rough, because we're supposed to act like the typical, like, person. And so you're not supposed, especially if you're a trans man, you're not supposed to feel sad. You're not supposed to have these different feelings. And so I face stigma a lot, that even though I was born a female and I am a male, I am in some ways told that I should feel things, but I'm also told that I shouldn't feel anything at all. And so I face a lot of stigma of, well, A, how am I supposed to react and show feelings? And also, like, I'm feeling these things. How do I tell people?
I feel like, having gone through everything that I've gone through, I now notice the stigma and stereotypes and everything for suicidal thoughts a lot more than I did before. I'm now noticing like that some people aren't accepting about it, and they think suicidal thoughts or self-harming is, oh well, immediately this person just wants to die. That's not what it is. It's not this person wants to die because die doesn't go into it enough. This person is looking for relief and everything. And the stigmas with suicide and self-harm and mental illnesses in a whole, I guess, are just people tend to look at them as they have this one final, like, condescending end to them, and they stretch kind of into different pathways. I wish people would take the time to like actually recognize and realize, like, so this person is hurting. They're not looking for an easy out by any means and everything, because what they're going through isn't easy for them to process and to do. Like, what I was going through wasn't easy for me to process or to do, and the fact that as a young adult and everything, like, a person has to go through that. I wish people would have taken the time to, like, not research, or you don't have to go and look up stuff online or read a book. It's just listening to what the person has to say and thinking more than, oh well, this person is now hurting themselves because they want this to end. This person is now hurting themselves because they need some sort of relief that life isn't providing them.
Something that is worth talking about is the idea that men in modern society should still be expected to hold up the idea that you stay strong, you support other people, you are the backbone of what's going on. And that creates this pressure of, if I do not, if this doesn't work out, if I'm not as successful as I feel I should be, like, I can't really talk about this, I'm not really an expert in this, but I know that very often emotional vulnerability is something that's very often oppressed and replaced with the idea that you should be able to continue to work. You should be able to continue to function and support and be a breadwinner, essentially. And it's an idea that you would think is, like, extremely old, but it's something that is still very prevalent and very real for far too many people, where it creates an environment where they feel like they can't really be honest and open. And so the fact that I have that environment is something that I'm extremely grateful for, and it's something that completely shapes the way that I live my life.
My message for hope is that we listen to people who are marginalized, who have gone through great adversity, and that we listen to what they're feeling, and that we ask them what they need and not what we think that they need.
My message of hope to everyone who's watching is deep breaths are always needed and everything. It's never gonna hurt to take a moment and take a deep breath and remember, like, your lifeline's air, and that you're on a world, and that there's space around you, and that you have animals around you, you have other humans around you. And don't look at them as, like, a thing. Look at them as, this is a human. Like, everybody's the same.
My message of hope is that you belong, you are needed, and you are not alone.